some things. Okay. Welcome back to my channel. So here we are now for another episode of my program. Anyway, now it is almost. Let me check the time. Oh, hmm, past seven, past 7 a.m. here in Athens, Greece. So maybe you might wonder how I'm making program by this time, and because tiredness of the day carried me away. Yes, it can happen. So yesterday was a general public holiday. It was a kind of Independence Day here in Greece. So even yet, it's I'm supposedly get rest, get rest, but I took advantage. I took advantage of it to do things where some things where I could not do other days where I'm working and busy with business, with work, and other activities. I spend time with friends. I spend time with friends and going from one place to the other. And as you can see, I got my I got myself involved with enjoy ourselves. Even this thing, it's better than to be working. It's far better, but can be energy taking. Yes. In no matter how enjoyable it's something, yet it is energy taking. Okay, okay, it is well, because you will get absolutely rested only if you stay home all day doing nothing. Let me not remember back in days of lockdown and quarantine, mm, and coughing, God forbid, quarantine. This is the day that many of people are here. I was reading on Facebook, complaining that they can barely sleep at night. Even me, night was falling, night was coming, sleeping time was coming, and yet, I was spending nights not sleeping. Yay, let's go. That is when you don't get tired at all. When you do nothing. How can you stay doing nothing? So let's move ahead to our program because of time. Today's topic is Paul facing debts. Yes. So um, just hold today's. Just keep. Let's not read it, but just keep today's topic. Excuse me. Today's scriptural reference. Hey, Second Timothy 4:20. So let's move ahead. It says, um, for I am already being offered, and the time of my departure time is come. So let's see it better. It's better to see it better. Ela, Grigora, Grigora, because of time, the day is about to the day is about to break as I see from my windows. Second Timothy 4:20. Hmm. Second Timothy. Um, okay, it says Erastus abode at Corinth, but Trophimus have I left at Miletum, Miletum sick. Hmm. Amen, somebody. So, first, the arrest. Let's go with the arrest. The winter came, and the winter of 67 and 68, Paul had left Erastus at Corinth, as we say, in the way to Nicopolis. Hmm. We have not looked that here Luke's graphic pen to describe the occasion of the circumstances of the second arrest. Probably why at Nicopolis during the winter of early spring, you know, Paul suddenly found himself under arrest as the result of work of some former anxious to integrate himself, into the good grace of Nero and the favorite of those pastime. Now, now the persecution of the Christmas that they have grown every uh, uh, every weary of mere um, gladiator shows. Mm. The tortures of a Christians, men and maidens, added novelty in the pace of life of Rome. You know, hey, his very nearest in Italy invited to attack the professional informers. Nicopolis monument and the victory of Octavius at Actium, was a good place for such men to gather. So, seconds, the new charges. We are here justified, in saying this much. This trouble in Jerusalem has arisen from the Jews, as a protest against Paul's work in in his bearing at Judaism. His Jewish enemies had tried to give an imperial turn, at these charges, but that here it has failed both in Caesarea and Rome. Before, before both provincial and imperial courts, but Christians could not find shelter under the privilege granted to Judaism by Roman law. The Christians and the Christian leader was now assured to be um, ipso facto, yes, facts, mm, guilty of dark and dubious practices. The Jews themselves were not into good standing at Rome, but now, as the war in Judea was raging, it may be informed logically, therefore, that the newly invented charges against Paul had to do with the Roman state, in a particular with the burning of Rome. Hmm. That that accusation was still doing the duty whenever it was needed against a Christian. It was a matter of uh, public knowledge that Paul had been in Rome not long before the burning of Rome. It would be easy to charge that this departure was only temporary, and at his return, that it was resentful. It was resentful because of his long imprisonment. That he was a, he was in true ringleader of a whole affair that he had since he was hiding a distant part of empire. It would be easy also to add to his accusation charges of disloyalty against the emperor because of his language about Jesus as a king of Thessalonica. That one is in Acts 17:7. The passion of the situation but that one lies partly in the fact that he was it is every time urgent prayer for his king and all the authority. That one is in First King 2:1, and urging obedience and an early orderly behavior as a part of all Christians. In Titus 3:1, it was just as it has been in his worship at the table of Jerusalem, and it was arrested before. Paul must now confront not mob, either Greek or Jewish. He had he had learned how to escape, how to escape them by help of God. He was not to confront the Jews, He was not to confront the Jews, those refinements in theology, to know them well. He was not about to appear before cowardly provincial governors, That one that who did not dare, who would not dare to do it before they knew that it was right. It was not indeed to face Roman's law at all its free exercise. Right. He would not probably appear before Nero in prison, but before the city perfects, uh, how to call it, the city prefects, who could be merely registered the known desire of Nero about Christians. Certain forms of law could be observed, but the wheels of law could grind out condemnation. One moment. Three. Hold on. Three. The close confident, excuse me, not confident, uh, the close confinement, the freedom enjoyed during the imprisonment is all gone. He's probably thrown into the Mamertine prison at any rate that is under close military custody. That one is in 2 Timothy 1:16. One is reminded as a condition of John the Baptist in prison, at mm, at how to call it, at Paul's own fates in the inner prison at Philippi. That one is in Acts 16:24. So he is back in Rome again, and a new Rome is Nero's mad uh, revels under the how to call it now, under somebody in a way. So Seneca, Seneca wrote philosophy while Nero gave full rate to his full passion. There is no relief in the dark pictures that save one, saved what comes from the inward light of the spirit. You know that it was indeed the irony of a human life for Paul was to be in the hands of a man that was nothing but a compound of malt and blood. Four, four, the desertion of Paul's friends. Not many Christians remained in Rome at a time like this. Many had suffered in martyrs' death for Jesus. Others, others have left the city, and probably wisely in doing like this. Crescents have gone in Galatia before with a message from Paul, and likewise Titus and Dalmatia, showing at this work in Crete was temporary in nature. So Paul has sent how to call that name? There are many names for there. Tychicus, Tychicus to Ephesus. Prisca and Aquila were sent to East, with Timothy, as well as was ashamed in the house of or the that Onesiphorus. Paul is a grateful to Onesiphorus for he has owned, refreshed, and was not ashamed of my chain. But when he was in Rome, he sought, diligently and found me. It says in 2 Timothy 1:16. Hmm. The simple words tell volumes about difficulty of finding Rome, and now a danger of being known on his friend and his former imprisonment. His visitors were many, and they come and went unhindered. It was his honor. It was an honor among Christians to be in the list of Paul's friends. But now one has to consider whether he was willing to lose his life for the sake of being apostle to the Gentiles. He could not be rescued. He might be confronted at every high price. Onesiphorus did not count the cost. his reward confronting the lonely apostle. Most Christians who had to be in Rome had convenient, made it convenient. So it seemed to be ignorant of Paul's whereabouts and, and to make it known to inquiries. Some remained, some remained and were loyal to Paul, thought not constantly with him. Like Eubulus, Puten's, Linus, Claudia, and all the brethren in Rome were not spread by Nero, you know. So, 5. The first stage of the trial. Hmm. That was already past when he writes to the last epistle, our only source of information for this closing period of Paul's life. The less serious charge apparently came first. So, what we did not know, it was uh, we have seen that Christians was a religion nova and illicita. You know, it was a man. This was a man that was involved in his former appearance at the bar of Nero. It was fallen through, and then it was and it have fallen now. We know the name of one accusers at the first stage of Paul's last trial. Alexander, you know, Alexander the coppersmith did not did me much evil. It says, you know, in, uh, he may have been the same Alexander at Ephesus, I think. See, all I know that was sought to clear Jews from connection with Paul and his denunciation of Diana and her temple. The name is a common one, but there is the same man. He was the doubtless of Diana and her temple. The name was common one, but you know, the same man was doubtless glad to his chance, to settle his account with Paul, since the multitude could not hear, could not hear me that day. This this resentment, you know, was of long standing, and his representation told heavily against Paul. You know, so it seems quite considerable audience that was present to his stage of the trial. Paul was the most famous Christian in the world. Common as the condemnation of Christians that has came to be fresh interest, fresh interest that would be aroused by this case. When Paul, when Paul came to Rome for the first time, he was met by delegation of brethren where coming, gave him courage. Now he looked around in vain, for anyone that could be of his parts. You know, he said, "All forsook me." Had Luke failed to be present on that day, Paul cannot cannot help thinking of all that peril that he was risk of all Christians. So, okay, it will not take long before we close for now. So, 6. The loneliness of Paul. It was a spring when Paul was writing, the spring of 68. He has passed through the part of winter of early spring and the dreary Roman prison. He had missed his warm cloak, which he has left at Troas at Capos. In his way to Macedonia, the winter of Nicopolis, is a way that he does not know how long the trial could be drawn out. It might last till the next winter, so he urges Timothy to be sure to come to Rome before winter. It makes him shudder to think of another winter, without that cloak. So, 7. The last message of Timothy. Paul, Paul has not lost his hold upon the workers that did the work, not his interest for the work. He has sent the messages of various parts from the world. By one of those, probably his messages of Timothy is conveyed. Hmm. Greatly as Paul concerned about his own problems, he is alert and eager to help Timothy. He hungers for sympathy, and he's bravely put heart into Timothy's plans. He reminds you know, his beloved child of his pious ancestry and urges him to be worthy as such a heritage of faith. You know, from a babe that he was known as the Holy Scriptures. The love, the love of those devoted teachers, that should inspire Timothy to loyalty to the word of God. Paul Paul begs Timothy to kindle into place the gift of God which he had. God gave a spirit courage and power, you know. As it is a noble appear that here Paul here makes bravery on the part of a younger preacher. Hardship hardship is a lot is a lot to which Paul calls in him. You know, So, 8. Paul's estimate on his own career. You know, he is a battle scared veteran of many conflicts and that may be allowed to say a word about himself. It is a brief word and sometimes called as a swan song just before his death. Swan song. Here, let's call swan song. It, I know here in Greece we call it asthma. I was not really aware of it, but all I know is a swan song before his death anyway. It's not time to make studies about that. Hey, Paul, Paul's fight is over. It's a plain to him that he is not unwilling to Timothy to know it. True, true, he may linger on some months or a year or so, but he never expects to have such a freedom again. He remembers the 5 years of a former imprisonment, and knows as the changer condition of his present state. 9. The longs for Jesus. Paul Paul does not doubt Jesus, but he has brought life and immorality to the life of through the gospel. So, if there is one thing of the word that about which Paul can speak with its authority and his fellowship with Jesus, I know in I know him whom I believed. You know, in the last analysis of his fundamental apologetic, knowledge of Jesus, nothing can rob Paul, of that one. He know Christ by a blessed experience of 30 years or more. 10. The condemnation. The end of it all came sooner than Paul had expected. Nero's own star suddenly set in gloom, but it was never rise again. By the middle of June of AD 68, Nero was dead in disgrace. The common tradition is that Paul was put in death before Nero's departure. You know, Hence in May or early June, we must suppose that Paul met the long foreseen doom. If Timothy came before that time, he was also made a prisoner through the escape in his life. So, if so, Paul has the comfort of Timothy's fellowship, a while at least, that it is doubtful if Mark was able to come, but Paul may have had another look at his books. 11. Paul's deaths. Details were all wanting, the tradition supplies with only a few which may have been true or not. The story that Paul was beheaded on the Austrian roads, it was customary for criminals of prominence to be executed several miles out of the city of as it to avoid all the crowds. So, okay, it's better we stop here. You know, the day is broken. it is it is to 8 a.m. and I have to prepare for my day. Okay, people, thank you for being with me. Take proper care for now. Until next week, blessings to you.